When Mia opened the bathroom door, she couldn't imagine that Luke was still in there, his body soaked from the shower, without a towel. Both looked at each other for a moment. The air was silent but tense. "Sorry," Mia said hastily, her eyes not daring to look at Luke's naked body. Luke looked at her, his face still calm. "It's okay, Mia." He gently received the towel she gave him, his hand gently touching her hand. Mia felt her heart beat rapidly. She hurriedly left, but the images in the bathroom kept lingering in her head. All day, she couldn't get rid of the strange and embarrassing feeling. The next day, Mia tries to get everything back to normal. However, the tension between her and Luke cannot be concealed. The two avoided facing each other, but could not avoid sneaking glances. Mia still tried to focus on her work, but the brief moments when Luke appeared in the house made her unable to think about anything else. One afternoon, while Mia was cleaning the living room, Luke walked in, carrying a large backpack, his face tired but still very handsome. He stood at the door for a moment, watching her before speaking. "What have you done?" Luke asked, his voice still light, but something about it made Mia feel suffocated. She looked up, trying to remain calm. Just cleaning up," Mia replied, a little awkward as to how to break the heavy silence between the two. She could sense the tension in the air. Luke didn't answer right away, just stood there, his eyes stopping for a moment on Mia, as if he was considering something. Finally, he said, his voice sounding like he was joking. "Mom, you forgot to lock the bathroom door yesterday? I didn't think I would be the only one who had to use a towel." Mia felt her face turn red. She quickly stood up, trying to move quickly to avoid showing her embarrassment. "Luke, don't talk about it anymore," she said, her voice choked up. He walked closer, still holding his backpack. "Aren't you annoyed that I could have helped you get a towel for you?" he said, his eyes never leaving her. Mia wants to say something, but the words won't come out. She felt as if her body was confused, unable to control her own emotions. "I don't think there's anything wrong," Luke continued, his eyes now seeming to penetrate her. "If you don't want me to talk, then you have to stay away from me. But I think you want this, right?" Mia swallowed hard, not answering. Luke's words were like a challenge, making it impossible for her to ignore. Mia tried to stay calm, but Luke's words made her more disturbed than ever. In the quiet space of the house, everything seemed to temporarily stop, and there remained only the oppressive tension between her and her husband's son. Mia quickly turned away, trying to find a reason to avoid him, but her steps seemed to be heavy. Luke remained standing there, his eyes never leaving her. His feeling now was not one of shyness or embarrassment, but of challenge, as if he was waiting for her to respond. "You don't have to feel embarrassed, Mia," Luke said in a low voice, each word like a wave crashing against her heart. "You can look at this another way, as something normal. We're both adults, right?" Mia turned around, her eyes red from stress. "Luke, I can't do this. This is a mistake." She swallowed hard, her voice weak, but her attempt to stop was completely unsuccessful. "We can't continue like this." Luke shrugged, his eyes still unchanged, without any sign of remorse. "You don't have to be afraid of it," he said softly, but clearly enough that Mia felt an arrow piercing her heart. "I can't deny how I feel, right? I know exactly what I want, but I don't want to admit it." Mia stood silently for a moment, feeling like everything was collapsing. She could only feel the urge from inside her heart. Even though her reason tried to protest, that strong emotion kept taking away all reason. "You can stop, Mia. But if you don't, you'll see us go further," Luke said, his eyes still half provocative, half serious. Mia could only keep quiet. She turned away, trying to regain her composure. But inside, a part of her wanted this more than she wanted to admit. One evening, after Tom had come home late and fallen asleep, Mia sat alone on the sofa, trying to relax. She sipped a glass of red wine, but her mind couldn't calm down. She remembered Luke's eyes, his confidence, and the feeling he gave her whenever he was near her. Mia felt drawn to him, but her mind kept reminding her of the dire consequences of continuing down this path. Suddenly, footsteps echoed from the stairs. Mia turned to see Luke standing in the doorway of the living room, looking at her with a meaningful gaze. He didn't say anything, just gently walked into the room, sitting down next to her. The space was filled with silence and an uncomfortable tension. Luke finally spoke, his voice still low and attractive. "But you can't deny what you feel, right? Every time you look at me, don't you feel your heart beating faster?" Mia swallowed, feeling like everything around her was slowly disappearing. "Luke, we can't do this. This is a mistake." Luke turned to look at her, his smile gentle but carrying a very unpleasant look. "Mia, do you really think you're doing the right thing? Can you stop feeling like this?" He looked at her intently. His eyes seemed to probe her every thought. "Do you want to be the good person in everyone's eyes forever? Or do you also have the right to live according to your feelings?" His question stabbed straight into her heart. Mia turned away, trying to control the emotions that were rising inside her. She couldn't admit what she felt, but part of her wanted to let it all go. Luke gently reached out, his hand brushing her shoulder, barely touching but sending a jolt of electricity through Mia. He whispered, "I just want you to feel what I feel." Mia felt her heart rate increase, as if all the pent-up emotions inside her were exploding. The long, restless nights and tense moments between her and Luke became unpleasant dreams from which she could not escape. Even though she tried to avoid him, Luke's intimate glances and nonverbal gestures were still hidden in every corner of the house. One night, when Tom went out again to receive guests, Mia sat alone in the kitchen, preparing dinner. She didn't hear Luke's steps until he stood at the kitchen door, looking at her with familiar eyes. "Mia!" Luke called her name, his voice gentle yet powerful. Mia turned, her eyes unable to avoid his gaze. The feeling of tension in her body was increasing. "You're working hard again?" Luke said, walking into the kitchen without waiting for an answer. He came closer, just a step away from Mia. His scent, a light cigarette smell and a warm body, made her feel helpless. Mia shook her head, trying to push her feelings out of her mind. "No, I'm not working. Just preparing dinner," she said, but her voice lacked confidence, slightly lost in the silence. Luke smiled, his smile carrying a somewhat challenging look. "Do you think you can do it your whole life without feeling anything?" He stepped closer, his breath now like a wave lapping Mia's lap. "You can't hide your feelings, Mia. I know you want this. And you know you can't stop." Mia felt her heart pounding, her body starting to tremble. She couldn't push him away, but felt scared of what could happen. She looked away, biting her lip as if looking for a reason to escape temptation. "Don't," Mia whispered, her voice trailing off, but her eyes never leaving his. "This is wrong. We can't." Luke gently lifted her chin, forcing her to look into his eyes. He stood there, his warm breath close to her, but not touching her. "We're past the point, Mia," he said, his voice now soft but determined. "We're too close to stop." Mia said nothing, but the feeling of helplessness kept her from looking away from him. She just stood there, her heart pounding, unable to distinguish between right and wrong. Her feelings for Luke, though wrong, were so compelling and intense that she couldn't ignore them. This situation had gone too far, and Mia knew there was no going back. But the way Luke looked at her, the intensity in his every move, made her unsure of what she really wanted. Mia lay awake that night, her heart heavy and her mind racing with inexplicable feelings. No matter how hard she tried to convince herself that she had done the right thing, that she could stop before it went too far, every time she closed her eyes, Luke's image would appear in her mind, sharp and indelible. She remembered his eyes, his challenging whispers, his seductive closeness. That night, Mia lay in bed, unable to sleep. The thoughts kept bothering her, making her unable to bear it any longer. When the clock struck 1 in the morning, Mia decided to go outside to get some fresh air. She needed to relieve the tension, and she knew she couldn't just avoid it. As she went downstairs and out into the garden, the moonlight made everything quiet and dreamy. Mia took a deep breath, trying to find her composure. But a soft footstep from behind made her turn around. "Can't you sleep?" Luke stood there, his dark hair loose, his eyes bright as stars. He was wearing a simple t-shirt and sweatpants, looking comfortable but still exuding an irresistible charm. Mia stood still, not knowing what to do. She couldn't push him away, but at the same time, she didn't know how to deal with this feeling. I just need some space," she said, her voice soft, but not hiding the tension. Luke stepped closer, not rushing, just quietly. "Mia, you know, I've always felt this," he says, his voice soft, convincing. "We've created these moments together, little by little, even if you realize it. Or not." Mia exhaled, feeling her body tremble again, not because of the cold but because of the exaggeration in his words. "Luke, don't do this," she said, trying to take a step back. "We can't go on like this." But Luke doesn't back down. He stepped closer, looking deeply into her eyes. "You can't deny this feeling," he said, almost in a whisper. "I can see it in your eyes, Mia. We can all get over this line, if you want." A strange, restless feeling arose in Mia's heart. She wanted to refuse, but she couldn't deny that her strong emotions were overwhelming her reason. She wanted to push him away, but felt helpless before her own temptation. Her hands trembled as she unconsciously touched his shoulder, and when Luke moved closer, she couldn't do anything but stand still, letting him touch her face. Luke gently caressed her skin, his fingers lightly brushing against her cheek, making Mia's heart beat harder. This feeling was so strong, like a current of electricity running through her body. "You don't have to be afraid anymore," Luke whispered, his eyes filled with understanding. "I've felt it all. Just admit it." She tried to withdraw her hand, but couldn't. The feeling of tension in her body made everything become blurred, no longer right or wrong. Mia knows she is at an important crossroads. And she also knows there's no turning back. "You don't have to be afraid," Luke said, his voice soft but firm. "No one can judge you when you know what you want. I won't force you to do anything. You can decide for yourself. You just have to feel." Mia felt like everything around her was falling apart. She knew she was being drawn into a game she couldn't control. Reason told her to stop, but a part of her craved this, something she had tried to deny for so long. She hadn't even realized she had crossed some fragile threshold, where reason was gone, only emotion. One step further, and Mia felt her body fall apart, as if being pulled into something unstoppable. She felt Luke's hand on her waist, gentle but firm. He didn't force her, but his presence was a force she couldn't resist. "Luke, don't," Mia whispered, her voice weak, but her heart was no longer as sure as before. She knew that no matter what she said, things had gone too far. Luke paused, his eyes filled with patience. "You'll be fine, Mia. We just need to admit how we feel." They stood there in silence, the space stretching out endlessly. Mia looked at Luke one last time, her heart unsure of what to do. But she couldn't deny it anymore. She couldn't go back, couldn't change what had happened inside her. Finally, Mia felt a strange sense of peace. Maybe she was ready to move on, even though she wasn't sure what the cost would be. But in that moment, she just wanted to let go of everything and be herself. Mia looked up at Luke, saying nothing, but there was a silent agreement in her eyes. And this time, she didn't feel afraid. She no longer had to search for a reason to refuse. She was left with a feeling of release, intense emotions that flared up inside her, things that could not be stopped. This time, Mia did not retreat. She stepped closer to Luke, letting her instincts guide her. When their lips touched, all the words, all the reason, all the torment disappeared. All that remained was the feeling, the final decision. Congratulations on watching the whole video. So you don't miss it, click the like button and comment below.